Good evening, everyone, and welcome for today's Med Talk by IGCP. I am Ada, your host for today's enlightening and insightful session. In today's discussion, we will explore how nutrition plays a critical role in preventing and managing some of the most common lifestyle related health conditions under the topic Dietary Strategies for Cardiometabolic Risk Reduction. To guide us through this important discussion, we are delighted to have with us Dr. Smita Shah, a highly respected dietitian and obesity consultant from Care Diabetes and Hormone Clinic, Ahmedabad. She holds a postgraduate degree in clinical nutrition and is also LLL certified in metabolic syndrome by the European Society of Clinical Nutrition and Metabolism. A very warm welcome to you, dietitian Smita Shah ma'am, and thank you for joining us on Med Talks by IGCP. Before we
Thank
move
you
into
very
the
much.
conversation, let's briefly understand what this topic means. In today's fast paced lifestyle, poor dietary habits are a major driving force behind these conditions. But the good news is, food can also be the strongest form of prevention and therapy. A well balanced, evidence based diet can help improve insulin sensitivity, reduce inflammation, and manage weight. Today, dietitian Shah will help us understand how personalized nutrition and mindful eating can transform the way we approach prevention and long-term health. Ma'am, this is over to you. You can proceed. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. And really, I would like to thank Mad Talks who had given me an opportunity to come this platform. And thank you for giving my introduction. So, good evening, everyone. And we have moved from infection disease driven mortality to the lifestyle driven morbidity. India, once known as undernutrition for the undernutrition, and now focus on the dual burden, overweight and the diabetes on one side, and micronutrients deficiency on the other sides. So cardiometabolic disease today we will discuss regarding it is including the obesity, diabetes, dyslipidemia, hypertension, and the cardiovascular disease share one common thread: a disturbed metabolic environment driven largely by the diet and the lifestyle. If we think evolutionary, our bodies were designed for scarcity and not for the abundance. But the modern diets with high refined foods and all kind of the sugary items, more fat, that what happens. Modern diet deliver the constant glucose spikes and metabolic overwhelming the metabolic machinery that evolved for the survival, not access. So this evolutionary mismatch explain why can even small consistent dietary improvement can produce a profound metabolic benefits. So as a nutritionist, I would like to say that nutrition is not a supporting therapy. It's a first line interventional. It's time to move from the disease management to metabolic resilience. So now we will start my talk. So, so today we will discuss regarding the strategy for the cardiometabolic risk reduction. So what is the why cardiometabolic risk factors? So why it's necessary? So in India, 101 million people living with the diabetes and almost 25% of the adult have hypertension and rising earlier in the life. Visceral fat and the insulin resistance is very common in the South Asia and the driven risk 11 million deaths year globally. So what is the cardiometabolic risk? So we discussed that clusters of the central obesity. We Indian has a normal with normal BMI. we have a central obesity. Our abdominal girth is higher, so our fat deposit is higher on the abdominal area, and this is the culprit from the cardiovascular disease as well as the diabetes, dyslipidemia, hypertension, and hyperglycemia. And inflammation and endothelial dysfunction are the key contributors. So these are some parameters for the body mass index for our Indian people is less than 23 is the normal BMI. But what happens in the same BMI, even on the normal BMI, our fat level is higher side and muscle mass are very lower. So this is due to our genetically and also Asian, this is the genotype. Our weight circumstances is almost in higher in the patient, our blood pressure, then HbA1c, triglyceride, and the HDL cholesterol is in the lower side in the Asians people. So diet and the cardiometabolic physiology, we can see. So there are obesity is the main crucial. Obesity is the culprit for the diabetes and cardiovascular disease. Also genetically, genes also genetically is maybe the father and mother is obese, so the child may be develop the obesity, dyslipidemia, also hypertension and insulin resistant. They all are the biomarker of the pre-marker of the diabetes as well as the cardiovascular disease. So how? So it's how you can see the physiology. So is inflammation and oxidative stress. And suppose the diet, you go for the proper diet, it will improve the insulin sensitivity, also help to reduce the blood pressure via sodium restriction and the potassium increase. If the if the hypertensive patients cut off the salt intake and increase the potassium intake through fruits and all leafy vegetables, they may reduce uh, hypertension and optimize lipid profile that reduce the LDL cholesterol, reduce the triglycerides, and increase the HDL. So diet has a major role to reduce the inflammation and the oxidative stress. So this is you can see the picture. So in this picture, one home, this is a very small hole in the house. But if you give more pay attention for the leakage of the house, what's happened after some years, you can see the small dietary shifts early can change the trajectory from the risk. So you can see this house is flooded. Why? Because they don't pay attention for the small leak. So the body is like our roof. This is a leak on the roof may seem minor. First time we look is a minor, but over years it can flood an entire house. Likewise, the small cumulative dietary insults lead to overt metabolic disease. So that's why you must pay attention for the very small problems. So you can there the second. This is the picture. The pathophysiology. This is the engine room of the disease. You can see two cars, and one is a very high smoke and a very dark smoke, and second there is the less smoke. So what is the difference between it? Because the body is like an engine. If you pour kerosene in this car, like kerosene means what's that unhealthy foods. So what happens? You pour kerosene instead of the fine fuel, consumption becomes inefficient. And what's happened? The pipe clog, smoke rises. What means the smoke rises means the oxidative stress. So it will be rise. And engine overheats means metabolic stress. So that time, so our body is like an engine. So you have to give him the good fuel. So what are the good fuel? Is the healthy food, the balanced food, and whole grains and the fruits and vegetables. These all are the good fuel. The goal of the dietary interventions. What are the goal for it? Almost all the main is to achieve the maintain and the healthy weight, especially visceral fat. Earlier I spoke that our Indians have normal BMI since their visceral fat is the higher side. So maintain your healthy weight, improve the insulin sensitivity and glycemic control. Most of the people are the pre-diabetic, they are hyperinsulinemia, so they have give attention for the diet. Optimize the lipid profile, like if the triglyceride is higher side and LDL is higher side, so you try to reduce it and increase the HDL level, lower the blood pressure, reduce the inflammation, oxidative stress, and sustain the long-term adherence. Avoid the nutrition harm. So adherence is also most important for that. And the key levers are the energy balance, that is the most important. Macronutrient quality, that is also important. We are eating protein, but which type of the protein? That is the most important. If you are having more animal protein, so if you are having more also saturated fat, so fiber, phytonutrients, food matrix, meal timing, sodium and sugar restriction, and personalization. That is the most important. So this is the dietary evidence overview. This is the nutrition science since 1747. You can see the first clinical trial in nutrition. It was done in 1747. And then in the 1809, the first scientific reports of fasting. Then in the 1921, 1923, 1986, the Mediterranean diet was published by the Mediterranean areas, and this became very, very popular. So in 1986, then 97, and 1941, 1950, 1977, and 1978, it was the high fiber diet introduced, and 1986, that was the Mediterranean diet. And then 1990, the food pyramid were start the guideline of the ADA, and they make a food pyramids. It was very helpful for the dietitian as well as for the patients. In 2005, evidence-based scientific dietary guidelines was published. 2015 recommendation, 2021, and now there's so many research is going on the nutrition. This is the good for us. So the pattern are single nutrient affects overall metabolism, and base pattern are the Mediterranean diet and the DAS diet plant forward. So Mediterranean diet become very, very popular, and definitely there are so many studies done on the Mediterranean diet, and the outcome, the data is very good. So, and the DAS diet is also very good for the hypertension management, and their study as on the favor of they help to reduce the hypertension. So, focus on the food quality, that is the most important, and whole foods over calorie counting. So, whole foods are very important if you are having less calories, but which type of the food you are having, the quality is the most important thing. Now we will discuss the Mediterranean diet. It was introduced in 1986. It was in the Mediterranean area they were using to do. But after some times, the people had noticed that in that area they were using this Mediterranean diet, and they have very less uh, problems of the heart related problems, cardiac problem. So there was so many. Then there was so many studies was done, and outcomes were in the favor of Mediterranean diet. So how is the diet? The rich in the MUFA is the good, and olive oil and whole grains, nuts and fish. So this is they are allowing olive oil uh, to use liberally, and swap oil, groundnut oil, olive instead of the ghee and butter. And weekly, they recommended more than two times fish and daily vegetables and the legumes. that is the good amount. Plant protein they are recommended, and it's good for that. And mechanism are because it's an antioxidant, because it's the contents of the lots of green leafy vegetables. Anti-inflammatory because it contains good amount of the omega-3 due to they recommended more than 2 times in the fish. Improve the endothelial function and favorable lipid modulation and insulin sensitivity. So there are lots of outcomes, and they are favor of the Mediterranean diet. So this is the pre-meal. This is the study, and in that study, they have three groups. One was the control group, second was the Mediterranean diet with nuts, and the third group was Mediterranean diet with extra virgin oil, extra virgin olive oil. So this study was done, and the conclusion was that, so in that study, it was helped to reduce the weight. And you can see the graph that who are on the Mediterranean diet, extra virgin olive oil, the results were good. They have lost good amount of weight also. They reduce the severity events, and they reduce the diabetes progressions. So this is the good study, and it was published in 2018, and you can see the good results of the Mediterranean diet with the extra virgin olive oil. Now we will discuss on the DASH diet. This is the dietary approach to stop the hypertension diet. This diet is also become very popular for uh, hypertension. So designed to reduce the blood pressure and strong, they have the benefit, ACCVD benefit, and this is how is it content. They recommended the high fruits and vegetables, low fat, dairy, and the nuts. They don't recommended dairy fat more. They focus on the high fruits and vegetables and nuts, and low in the sodium. The recommended sodium level is less than 1500 mg per day. So this is the main plus point to reduce the hypertension, because the recommended is sodium intake is very low. They low in the red meat, sweets, and the saturated fat. And local adoption, they can have buttermilk, yogurt, dal, leafy vegetables, and the sabjis means vegetables. So this is possible to do for the also vegetarian people. So you can see this is a DES diet, and this study was published in 2020. Then outcomes were that was the DES diet and the control diet, and you can see the hypertension was reduced, systolic blood pressure was reduced 58%, and in the and diastolic was 72% compared to control diet, only it was 0.02 and less than 0.001. So apart from that, uh, hypertension also, systolic blood pressure and the diastolic blood pressure all were very coming down with the help of the DAS diet. And BP lowering effect of the DAS diet in adult with and without hypertension. So this is, you can see, that was the excellent result for this study comparing with the control diet. Now, this is the second thing is the low carbohydrate diet. It become very popular. So, what are the definition of the low carbohydrate diet? The definition is the suppose the diet is very low, less than 10% of the carbohydrate is a ketogenic diet, and suppose the moderate carbohydrate means less than 45% of the carbohydrate of the energy, and low than less than 26%, and very low means ketogenic diet is less than 10% of the total energy of the carbohydrates. So what are the key for that? That is a personal preference and metabolic profile. The very low carbohydrate diet and the ketogenic diet not advisable for all the people. It is also, it is a special for the epilepsy patients in the children, that were recommended the ketogenic diet, but it should be done under the physician guidance. And effective in uncontrolled diabetes, because it's a low carbohydrate diet, less than, if you go for the less than 45% of the total energy, so definitely it help to reduce the weight as well as to control the diabetes whose sugar is very uncontrolled, because it will reduce the refined grains. And best candidates, patients with the insulin resistance, who are insulin resistant, who have hyperinsulinemia, the low carbohydrate diet definitely will help them. Hypertriglyceridemia, obesity, but require close monitoring. This is the most important thing that you have to done under observation of the registered dietitians as well as the physician. So this is a diafit trial. It is also very good trial, and it was done for 12 months. And this study was done in a very different way. It was done low fat genotype. They divide the patients in genotype patient, and they had given them healthy diet but low fat diet, and the comparison with the healthy low carbohydrate diet. There were two groups. The first was the low fat genotype group and low carbohydrate genotype group, and third one was the neither genotype group, healthy. But in that study, they offered all the patients very healthy fat as well as very healthy carbohydrates. And the results was, after 12 months, it was, the conclusion was that the low carbohydrate versus low fat, similar weight loss at 12 months. The weight loss was the similar in the low carbohydrate and the low fat diet. But the diet was considering in the genotype. I mean, they go for the gene test, and the genetically all the tests was done. Now the second thing is the low glycemic index and low glycemic load diet. Also, we must consider the glycemic index for the diabetic patient as well as for the obese and the hyperinsulinemia, and in the insulin resistant patients. So we know that glycemic index means measure the postprandial glucose response, and glycemic load consider the amount of the food. So that is the basic difference between the glycemic load and the glycemic index. The low glycemic index and glycemic load diet improve the postprandial glucose, reduce the insulin demand, and modestly help with the weight and HbA1c. So the patient with the diabetes whose sugar was uncontrolled, and especially postprandial uncontrolled sugar, so if we can, we change their diet and we give them low glycemic index food as well as the low glycemic load food, so definitely their postprandial sugar is controlled. And practical implementation, replace the high glycemic staple food like white rice as a very high glycemic food. So you exchange with the brown rice and refined flours. So if you are having the refined flours, so definitely it has a very high glycemic index, and your postprandial sugar will be going high. So you replace with the whole grain or the multigrain with a lower GI grains, legumes, millets, coarse grain, and fiber-rich food. So you can add some fiber in the flour, as well as you can add some chana flour and uh, jawar atta. So it will make difference, and it will reduce the glycemic index of the refined food, refined flour. So main thing is how to incorporate fibers as well as the low glycemic index food with your food. It will definitely help to reduce your postprandial blood sugar. Intermittent fasting, this is also most important. Nowadays it's become very popular, and time restricted eating. Obviously, it helps because when you are eating, your insulin is always the spike after eating the carbohydrates. So the common protocol, there are three protocols: 16 to 18, of 16 hours fasting and 8 hours of the eating window, 5 to 2, 2 low calories days, and alternate day fasting. Meta-analysis on 5 to 2 diets means 5 days you can eat and the 2 days you have to go for the very low calorie diet. And 5 to 2 diets, the low calorie means for the female 500 calories and for the male 600 kilocalories per day, and significant reduction in the weight. So this is the meta-analysis of the 5 to diet. The reduction in the weight, BMI, waist, LDL cholesterol, systolic blood pressure, HOMA-IR, but not always in the triglyceride, diastolic blood pressure, and the HbA1c. So other meta-analysis that Other meta-analysis that intermittent fasting generally comparable to continuous calorie restriction for weight loss and cardiometabolic markers. Theoretical mechanism improve the insulin sensitivity, metabolic flexibility, and circadian alignment autophagy. So we discuss all the dietary pattern, DASH pattern, Mediterranean patient, intermittent fasting, very low carbohydrate diet. But we must focus on the salt, sugar, and the ultra processed food. Right now, the ultra processed food and the packet foods are more common in the adult and the young adult and the adolescent. So, what's what they contain? This is high sodium. All the packet foods have the very high amount of the sodium. So what happens? It's raise the BP, vascular stiffness, reducing the salt yet BP reduction, and especially in the salt sensitive people. And added sugar, that is most important. Sometimes you must teach the patients to how to read the food label, because there are so many misconceptions and so many labeling are very fact, very difficult to read to the page. It's very small font. Okay, so you must check the label and check the added sugar, especially sugar sweetened beverages and processed snacks. Sometimes they labeling they say they sugar free, but they contain a lot of carbohydrates. So that is the most important thing. Since the ultra processed food is a link to observable studies to obesity, metabolic syndrome, higher CVT. This so ultra processed food is very much right now. It's very common in the young adult and the adolescents, and this is the root cause of the obesity, I think. So you must teach the patient, you must educate your patients that you don't go for the ultra processed food, and how what is the ultra processed food also you can explain them. And recommendation, the gradual sodium reductions and limit added sugar, avoid ultra processed food. Read the labeling, that is the most important. You always teach your patients how to read the food labeling. If you go for the shopping, please you check the rate to check the label, and prefer the whole food substitutes. Whole food and the food matrix. The whole foods deliver the fibers, micronutrients, all the, nowadays the millets are become very popular because it contains the good amount of the fiber as well as the good amount of the micronutrients, phytochemicals, structural properties that modulate the digestion and absorption. And the food matrix is we must it's a very important route now. The concept is the interaction among the nutrients and the structural influence for the metabolic response. So we also focus on the food matrix and epidemiological evidence The diet higher in the whole, minimal processed, plant-based food linked to the lower cardiometabolic risk. We know that the fiber is most important. At least we recommend it. At least we should take 30 to 35 grams of the fiber per day. So that's why you go for the whole grains as well as the good amount of the leafy vegetables, sprouts and lentils and all kind of the pulses. You get more good amount of the fiber, and it helps to reduce the cardiometabolic risk. The whole fruit actually lower glycemic response than juice. You don't recommended juice because you go for the whole fruit. It contains a good amount of the fiber, and encourage the real food first approach. Use the supplement only if necessary. Nowadays the supplements has become very popular, like protein supplements, vitamin supplements. But first you choice to the real food. So you go for the good amount of the protein we can get for the dairy products as well as for the lentils, for the nuts. So then if the patients require, then you recommended them the supplements. And personalized nutrition, so that's the most important thing. This is the not one size fit for the all. So inter individual variability, genetics, that is the most important. So you must see the that suppose their parents, yeah, their grandparents are obese, they're diabetic, they may develop diabetes and obesity. Gut microbiome, this is also more uh, important, because gut microbiota is related to all the disease. So you must focus on the gut microbiome, metabolic phenotype, comorbidities, and cultural socio-economic constraint. So we must focus on the cultural, that is most important, because your diet should be sustainable. That is the most important thing. And behavioral, psychological, and the practical factors, that is the most important, because we are planning the diet, we are giving the diet to the patient is not for the temporary, it's a lifetime. So you may consider all these things. Preferences, food preferences, cooking skill, that is what you always say them, that you cook in the minimum oil. You can use you can use air fryer, yeah, you can use non-stick for the very less amount of the oil. You can steaming the food, you can saute the food. So these are good, so you can teach them how to cook in the minimum oil. Budget is also most important thing we must consider, time and the social support. Tailor adjustment required in the special cases. So the patient is the sick ID, so we must consider all the things. Other than the macronutrients, also we must consider the micronutrients, GI disease, allergies, fertility, and cultural diet contradictions. And a precision nutrition is promising but not yet ready for routine clinical use. Nowadays, the precision nutrition has become very popular, but it's something, it's little bit, is a very high cost, is not affordable for all the patients, and use patient central counseling, flexibility, and corrective adjustment. So diet synergy, you can see this. It's like a dietary synergy. It's a combining strategies. You know, so what happens that I say that like an orchestra, you can see that each instrument diet. I think that is the diet components. Each instrument plays a part of together. They create the harmony. The orchestra are joining and they create the harmony in the same time. I think that all the components of the diet will definitely balance your metabolic. So this is like our diet should be like an orchestra. So many strategies are complementary, not mutually exclusive. So example of the synergy plan, that the whole food foundation, like the fruits, vegetables, legumes, minimally processed food, these all are the combination like orchestra. So you can go for the metabolic balance, low glycemic carbohydrate sources, Moderate energy of the time restricted window is acceptable. Functional food added. There are so many functional food that help to prevent the disease like methi seeds and haldi. This is in our kitchen. Then cinnamon powder, also the seeds, chia seeds and all kind of the sunflower seeds. These all are the good amount of the functional food. Green tea, that is we can add in our diet, and minimize ultra processed food, sodium and the sugar. The monitoring and feedback, that is the most important, the core parameters and frequency. Anthropometric, always every visit when you check every visit, you call your patient and 15 days or 10 days. So you must check his weight, BMI, weight circumferences, glycemic parameter like fasting glucose and HbA1c should be done 3 to 6 monthly. Lipids, all the lipid profiles should be done 6 to 12 months. BP at every visit. Inflammatory markers like CRP and interleukin 6 when available. If the patients have high CRP ratio, then you can check after 3 months. And nutrient markers like vitamin B12, iron, vitamin D, and renal function is needed. So implementation in click and practice, that the workflow is the risk of the screening, nutrition referral. Suppose the patient, doctor screen the patients and we need that he requires the nutrition counseling, the nutrition referral, share a plan, follow up, and the support. The role of the dedications, it's a group practice. The physician as well as the dietitian as well as the physiotherapist for the exercise. So this is for the entire team we need. The physician set board target and the monitor. Dietitian design the detailed plan and coaching and the follow. And tools, what are the tools for that? The motivational interviewing, that is the most important. Dietitian should be a good motivator. We have a good smart goal, and always teach the patient. Always you ask the patient to keep the food diary. That is the most important, to keep the food diary. And nowadays, there are a lot of mobile applications are available. The patients can share a photo of his dish, and we can know what is he eating and how much calorie is eating. And telenutrition, that is also we can do online nutrition and that webinar. Yeah, we can do the telenutrition. So nowadays, these wearable devices also available. Okay, we can know the how much patient is walking, how much steps, how much calories is burning. So nowadays, there are so many applications and wearable devices available. For the diabetic patients, CGMS is also available. And what are the barriers? Also, there are the barriers for that, the limited time. Even doctors as cannot spare much more time for the diet related guidelines. And no, also patients have no time. Sometimes he is in hurry. And belief system cost. It's a cost is also considered. Food access and literacy. That is the most important. If the patient is not unliterate, so it definitely will not agree. And the education level is also important, and cultural, that is the most important. So there are lots of barriers for that also. So challenging controversies and evidence gap, we will discuss the that are also the debate between the saturated fat. So we can replace the saturated fat. Means we can replace the refined carbohydrate with the PUFA or MUFA. That is also we can do. And red meat and the processed meat, we should not allow the patient. So nowadays there is no substitute for the red meat, but you can say that you can go for the seafood. Yeah, and fish is good for that. Suppose he likes the non-veg food, and also sometimes he replace with the chicken and grilled chicken. And adherence and sustainability remain the critical obstacle. So the main thing is the adherence. That is the most important thing. The patient adherence is the most important. That's why you should be a motivator. You should motivate the patient, educate the patients. so that will increase the adherence level, as well as the sustainability of the diet. The diet is not for the temporary. You explain the patient this is for the lifetime diet, and this is not for the only you. This is entire for the family. It's a healthy and balanced diet. Evidence gap nowadays. The long term randomized controls trials with a hard CVT outcome. So we don't have much more trials for that, and need for the integration with the digital health, better biomarkers, and that are the more necessary for the patients. So this is the take-home message that diet is a primary upstream level in reducing the cardiometabolic risk, influencing the multiple pathway, multiple diet patterns. Mediterranean diets, low carbohydrate, low glycemic index would select one the patients can sustain. That is the optimal diet for the patient.
Yeah, doctor will join shortly. So let me explain about the topic. Well-balanced and evidence-based diet can help improve insulin sensitivity and reduce inflammation and manage today. Dietitian Shah is also help us to understand here how personalized nutrition and mindful eating can transform the way we approach prevention and long-term health. So, ma'am is coming in few seconds. I think there is a network issue. So thank you so much, dietitian Smita Shah, for sharing such practical and science-based insights. You have beautifully explained how a mindful approach to nutrition can truly help and prevent lifestyle diseases and promote long-term well-being. And to all our viewers, thank you for joining us this evening on Med Talks by IGCP. Let's continue to make a small sustainable change in our daily habits because prevention always begins on our plate. Until next time, this is Ada signing off. Stay healthy, stay informed, and have a wonderful evening. Thank you.